Hello, I'm Noelle, or One Nutty Girl, and Miitopia recently got announced to be coming to Switch, and I'm beyond excited, as I really love Miitopia on 3DS and I can't wait to play it on Switch. But Miitopia is a bit of an odd one to be the only 3DS port, so what other games could they do? Well, today I'm going to be going over 15 games that I think could get the Miitopia treatment in no particular order, and I'm actually only going to be including games that I played myself. But now with that out of the way, let's get into it. A Link Between Worlds is one of my favorite Zelda games and easily my favorite of the 2D games, and while some might say it's a bit too similar to A Link to the Past, it is that game's sequel after all, so it makes sense. Just the wall matching mechanic is amazing, the item rental system is genius, and it introduces the ability to choose what dungeons you want to do in any order, that is missing from the series since the original. And then a couple of years later, Breath of the Wild came out and awed everyone, fully capitalizing on that idea. And just, the game is amazing, and I'd love to play it again. Well, yes, the original game is a Wii game. I much prefer the 3DS version, as the Wii version requires motion controls, but the 3DS version looks worse and runs at half the frame rate. So I'd love the definitive version of the game with the frame rate of the Wii, the graphics of the Switch, and the controls and difficulty modes of the 3DS version, and give this amazing game the best version it deserves on Switch. Mario & Luigi Dream Team was an okay game in my opinion. It wasn't bad per se, it was just a little conflicted about what it wanted to be. And the pacing is god awful, the tutorials are way too much, and the story is kinda bad in my opinion. So a Switch port would be really good for the game, tuning down the tutorials or at least including the ability to fast forward cutscenes like in Paper Jam and the remakes, and touching up the story a bit. I know it's pretty unlikely due to Alpha Dream going out of business and the fact that it uses the touchscreen prominently, but I can dream. Pun intended. Ah yes, the two games that made Alpha Dream file for bankruptcy, Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions, and Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey. These are pretty good versions of these amazing games, and I really wish Bowser's Inside Story was on Switch instead of the 3DS, as it might have actually sold decently well. They said it was because of the touchscreen stuff, but that could have easily been converted to button controls. I know it's unlikely, but I'd really like to play these games on the big screen. This is probably the game that I want to be ported to Switch the most, mostly because a third-person shooter doesn't really belong on 3DS. The game's controls are honestly really bad, giving me hand cramps if I play them for too long. And if the game gets a control revamp, that's all the game really needs to be basically a perfect game. And maybe put the game in a higher resolution and add a few more weapons, or maybe even vehicles, and that's really all I want. The remakes of two of the most acclaimed games of all time, Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask 3D. While Majora's Mask 3D is kinda weird in all honesty, they changed a bunch of things from the original for seemingly no reason, but that doesn't mean it's a bad game. And Ocarina of Time 3D is an amazing remake, providing tons of quality of life changes like being able to take off and put on the iron boots on the fly, and I'd love to play them on Switch. Super Mario 3D Land is the generally forgotten 3D Mario game, since it's easily the worst of the 3D Mario games. But that really speaks to the quality of the 3D Mario games, as the worst one is still really good and enjoyable. And that's all I can really say, it's an enjoyable, pretty basic Mario experience, and I'd love to see it return. My favorite Fire Emblem game, and while I haven't played Fates or Echoes, I really enjoyed my time with Awakening. The story being incredible, the characters are amazing, and it has the best girl ever, Severa. Severa, I love you. Anywho, I just really like Awakening, it being the peak of Fire Emblem in my eyes. Tomodachi Life was a really enjoyable life simulator. It just got a little boring after a bit, kinda making me fall off the game over time, because after you unlock everything there really isn't anything else to do. But add some more content and some LGBT representation like they said they would, and this game could be a truly amazing time. Or just make a sequel to the game, I'd be fine with either. Kirby Planet Robobot on the 3DS is my favorite Kirby game of all time. I just really love the mechs, the stories, the character, and the gameplay, and I'd adore to see it return. It's just an amazing classic Kirby game, what more can I say? While not my favorite Kirby game, it's still an incredibly quality Kirby game nonetheless. There's no real gimmick to the game, the supernova mechanic not being that crucial to the game overall, but I think Taranza is one of my favorite Kirby characters as I just feel really bad for him, and I honestly really like an excuse to play it again. I returned to the classic 2D Metroid games, and honestly, I don't really like this game. It's not because it's a bad game, far from it. I just never really liked Metroidvanias like Hollow Knight, the 2D Metroids, and Symphony of the Night like Castlevania games. But I can definitely admit it's a good game that deserves a second chance on Switch. I just really wish it was for me, but sadly, it really isn't. But I know how much people love this game, so I decided to choose it as one of the 15 games to get a Switch port, and also as kind of running out of games to pick. So, you're welcome, Metroid fans. Like I said in my favorite bosses tier list, which is on the cards, I really like the new Super Mario Bros. Series, with the new Super Mario Bros. 2 being my favorite, but I also really like new Super Mario Bros. 2, it being super addicting to collect coins on that game. While the game gets a lot of flack for being generic, that doesn't really bother me, and it's just fun to play, and that's really the reason I like it. And now for the game in which I have no idea wasn't on Switch in the first place, the Luigis Mansion remake. The game probably would have been worse than the original GameCube, even if it was on the Switch, because they would have changed the art style, and the art style and ambiance is the best part of the original, but it would have at least looked and played better if it was on Switch, so I just don't understand why they put it on 3DS, kinda like the Bowser's Inside Story remake, and yes, I want this game on Switch just like that one. And there we go, those are 15 3DS games that I want ported to Switch. Tell me what games that you want ported in the comments, and if we can get to 15 likes, then I'll do a video covering DS games that should be ported. But with that out of the way, until next time, I'm One Nutty Girl. Bye bye!